tonight, and I hope you guys really enjoy having her here. It's
Thank
all
you.
yours.
All right. So thank you so much for having me. I'll give you a little bit more background. I was doing a presentation at ATIA, and that's where I met Barbara for the first time. And she came over to talk to us about our project that we have been working on, which was actually, I was working with some colleagues in New Jersey on playground communication boards and core communication boards. And we were so excited. We wanted to present this blueprint that we had developed for individuals who really wanted to learn how to make these communication boards. And so Barbara came over and we matched energies, and we were having this amazing conversation about all the wonderful things that you could do with these communication boards. And she's like, here's what I do, here's my company, and I can make these. So as a side note too, Barbara, if you put that in the chat, we ended up creating these amazing custom playground communication boards, and we've really just continued. We're presenting at ASHA this year on how to continue to expand these core communication boards in our community. And we're even looking past the playground. So starting to think about other locations that we can head into, and just realizing that people are asking for these boards, and they're not always SLPs who are asking. So we really wanted to create a really strong, developed core board by an SLP, right, for these kids with communication needs out in the community. So that's how Barbara and I initially met. And we stayed in touch, and we've been working on this ASHA presentation, and we met up for dinner one night, and she said, I have a new software program to show you. And I said, yeah, great, show me. I've been doing technology for 20 years. I actually came out of the RERC on technology transfer when I was a graduate student. I worked with the AAC, RERC, all these really big technical names. But I did a lot with technology training, a lot with technology transfer. So I've always been interested in technology, and I've done assistive technology and AAC as a specialty area for over 20 years. And I love it. And so I really understand, I think, what technology is and what we are looking for it to do, especially now, even more so. And so she started to show me this program, and I was like freaking out. So I was completely nerding out on Barbara, and I'm like, this technology is amazing. And I said, please let me do a presentation on this, because I really feel like I look at it from two different ways. One, I'm still a practicing clinician. I'm in the trenches. I'm seeing kids, like I'm still wiping noses and trying to take data at the same time. And then on the opposite end, I own a private practice, and we consult in school districts, and we also have a private clinic. So I have therapists, and I'm trying to manage materials and address their caseload needs and figuring out how to support them best in their clinical placements. And then I also teach at a university, and I've taught students for so many years. And I think about, what do we really need to educate people about our field and how technology can play a role in our daily practice. And I think there's lots of different ways that can do that. And I'm going to show you this program that I quickly was like, Barbara, you're kidding me. This is amazing. So I did beg to do this presentation, because I think it's really something that people will get on a very basic level, that you're like, oh my gosh, I need to implement this into my therapy right away. And I had already been using Smarty Ears apps before I ever met her. So it felt a little bit like I was meeting a celebrity. But so I'm so excited to share this with you. This is going to be kind of talking about getting back to school, getting back into that routine, getting back to our like clinics and revisiting things, and then figuring out, what do we really need to do to manage our caseloads, and how some of these digital tools can transition to create better opportunities for us as a therapist and for our clients. So I'm going to go and share this screen, and then you'll be able to see all of my crazy stuff in the background. Here's everybody's desktop's always crazy. Ooh, not it. There we go. Okay, so digital backpack. I really thought, like, we're getting back to school. Let's talk about getting our backpacks ready. And when the first thing that hit me when Barbara showed me this program was, it was kind of like a digital backpack, everything that you might need to throw on your back to take into therapy and get started right away. So that's why we kind of call this the digital backpack presentation. I'm Jennifer Cristiano. I am an SLP. I am licensed in Florida and New Jersey. I run a private practice and we service both schools. And as I said, I have 2 clinics in New Jersey since 2004. And I also work at Stockton University teaching AAC courses there. So in my spare time, I kind of geek out about all of the technology, both assistive technology, AAC, and then I really love really good, strong educational technology. So today we're going to kind of break things down into what digital tools are. And I just want you to know a little bit more about the decision-making process, because I've been using technology since the iPad first came out. Like the first thing that you got it and nobody even knew what to do with it. It wasn't for education at all, right? It was just for playing games, taking pictures, like having a cool big screen. So I want to talk a little bit about digital tools now and being able to identify the good, the bad, and the ugly, I call it. We're going to talk a little bit about the goals that are built into this program and some of the goal banks that they have in there and the customization of that. We're going to talk about setting up your students for success, being able to add your caseload into this program, run your individual and group sessions seamlessly. We're definitely going to talk about data. I'm pretty obsessed with it. And I really think that maximizing how we collect data and our progress monitoring is such an important part of our job right now. And I really like to put myself in a situation where I can still sit there and be completely vested in my therapy session, but then at the same time, really still be keeping good data that supports the evidence-based practice strategies that I'm implementing during therapy. I want to get the most bang for my buck. And then I want to know how to report it. Because if we can't report it and we can't demonstrate it, then it's sometimes it doesn't really happen. And then we have talking about what interactive digital activities are, showing you some of the activities that are present here, and then talk a little bit about the licensing. So there's different types of licensing that they have available. Okay, so let's start talking a little bit about digital tools in general before we start talking about Speech and Language Academy. There are I always categorize digital technology tools and therapy tools into 3 different categories: the good, the bad, and the ugly. And there's definitely, I've been through and I have purchased all of them, right? Like I used to be back, buying every app that ever came out in the field. I'd buy it and I would have it. So I'm really used to kind of looking at this digital tool was not a good one. So let's talk about what makes a good digital tool. Good digital tools have HIPAA and FERPA compliance. I did a presentation for Nagisha several years ago, and it was on HIPAA and FERPA compliance in speech-language pathology. And at the beginning of the presentation, I said, hey, raise your hand if you think that you may be violating HIPAA or FERPA in your use of your computer at your job, right, for work. And probably a dozen people out of 100 raised their hand. And then I went through the entire presentation of all the pitfalls that can happen with different technology and how it can leak data out. And then at the end of the presentation, I said, okay, raise your hand if you think that you have violated HIPAA or FERPA compliance in your use of technology at your job. And every single person raised their hand, because it can be really easy to do. Sometimes the technology that we're using isn't set up in a way that logs us in, maintains privacy, logs us out when we're not using it. I would see people logging into, having an iPad, using that same iPad at home and having student data on it that wasn't locked anywhere or logged in anywhere, because they were so happy and excited to take notes on their iPad, but then their toddler used their iPad. So you're really want to make sure that when you're using technology, especially in the schools, we want to really make sure that we are keeping our student data safe. The other thing that really good tools have is the ability to customize them. It's sometimes my most frustrating thing when I get in and I see a program that's got some potential, but I can't tweak it in any way that makes it relevant for different students that I have on my caseload. So that's really important. Another thing, data tracking. So there's a lot of fun things we can do on the iPad, but if they actually don't track progress toward a skill or a goal, they don't give us a lot of good information, and they end up becoming more of a reinforcer than they were an actual therapeutic material. And I think that that's a big thing that I've seen in the classrooms and working with teachers. They all wanted iPads, and then they were using them mostly for reinforcement, not for actual instruction. And this technology is so powerful, it can be used for instruction. We want these apps to also have some built-in flexibility. We want to be able to tweak things so that it best meets our needs. It's not flexible if the app only does one student at a time, right? It's flexible if the app can do one student or it can do a group. So there's some flexibility that's built in there. And then we want to talk about the interaction. Sometimes we create these digital materials, and I saw a lot of this happening during the pandemic, the early stages of the pandemic, and everybody's reinventing the wheel. And they were like, I made a great PowerPoint. And they were so excited to show it to their students. And then the students were like, I'm bored, right? So we are like trying to create these really great digital tools. But what these kids are looking for are actually interactive digital tools. They're used to their Nintendo Switch, and they have got all the dopamine firing with all of these fun visual images flashing in their face, right? And sometimes it's a little bit tricky if you have all of your materials that you're presenting that are really just static PDFs. So then we look at the bad tools. And the bad tools are things that have limited reusability. When you're spending money on something, you want to be able to take it out and use it regularly, if not daily. Bad tools also have limited content. So maybe they only cover one specific area, and it's not really robust for the caseload that you have. Bad tools also have poor or no data tracking. So it doesn't really give you the ability to keep all of your information with the skill that you're teaching and the data that you're tracking. Everything becomes a little compartmentalized. And then bad tools can be kind of visually boring. So I'm not mentioning names, but I purchased a lot of different applications when we were in the pandemic, when I started doing telehealth sessions. And some of the materials that I purchased were really visually boring, and kids were not becoming engaged with the activities that were being presented. And then we have the ugly tools. And I've seen a lot of these things too. There's no digital login to protect the information. Anybody can gain access to it, and our devices are really portable. Laptops are portable, iPads are portable. We really want to make sure that these are programs that are logged into and logged out of. Ugly tools are really built off of static images and PDF images only, especially when we have situations where we have just a worksheet, a black and white worksheet that's up on the screen, and we're just trying to use a whiteboard over it. And it's really not a very interactive lesson for the kids, and they tend to not be super motivated by it. And then the other piece of that, and I put it down here because I want to make mention, just questionable evidence-based practice materials. And this happens all the time. And when I used to do trainings for Apple, I used to tell people, you have to make sure you can evaluate the content of the app that you're presenting, because you don't always know who made it. And there were a lot of people who were making apps early on that were just in it to make money. These weren't educators. They weren't speech therapists. They could have been a mom or a dad that knew how to code. It could have been somebody who was just like, hey, I know how to code and I made an ABC app, and it might not have even been a very good one, right? But they were selling it. They might have just been following the market. The other thing is that a lot of those apps, when we saw them early on, we had this influx of all these applications, but Apple updates their system all the time. So it makes it really difficult for developers to keep track of that. So a lot of apps would just go missing in the App Store. Like, you'd buy it, and then you'd be so excited and you'd have something that worked, and then all of a sudden it stopped working. and then the company disappeared because it wasn't really a company. Even some really big companies disappeared along the way. I had some AAC apps that we had started implementing early on, and they just never gained traction and then disappeared. And once they disappeared and they couldn't be supported anymore, now those individuals had to switch to something else. So there's a lot of, you really want to make sure you find technology that has been around for a long time. And the nice thing about mobile apps is because they're really using web browsers, it's a lot easier to manage that content without having to worry about all of those individual operating systems that you have with the apps themselves. So you're going to see a lot more improved usage. So that's some of the things that we talk about when we think about a digital tool and what digital tools really do for us. So that's the stuff that we're looking for, all of that good stuff. But all of the telepractice people here are going to freak out when they see all of these features, because I've done a lot. I have done a lot of telehealth visits with different software programs and the glitchiness of it, and then different platforms that include their own software inside of it. And then being able to try to use that creates its own set of issues. So definitely all the telepractitioners here are going to be really excited about what they see. This is the digital backpack. It is the Speech and Language Academy. It's powered by Smarty ears. And I'm going to say this is kind of this blurb, an ever-growing library of fully interactive activities. I have to stop there, because every time I talk to Barbara, when it says ever-growing, it means ever-growing. Every time I speak to her, she's added a new app in there. And the end goal is that not only will new content go in, but every single Smarty Ears app will actually migrate into this digital backpack. So talk about a really large library of materials that you have access to. And they are going to be in areas like articulation and phonology, receptive and expressive language, phonological awareness, social skills, pragmatics, reading, literacy, grammar, syntax, just a ton of different areas. And I'm going to show you this next slide, what she did. There's always updates. And I think what I love is that she takes this idea and then she updates it to really represent more of what's needed in the field. So instead of just having those broad categories, Barbara went through and she created these resource categories. So you could really specifically go in and take a look and say, yep, I'm doing auditory memory skills. You know what? I'm working on categorization skills. Nope, I'm looking at expressive language skills. When you select one of these subset areas, it's going to show you activities here that correspond with that specific resource category. So you're really going to be able to quickly sort through this large library of materials to be able to find the things that you're looking for specifically for your students. And this is an update that's actually happening, I think, this weekend or next weekend, coming into play pretty soon. So that's one thing, tons of different resource categories and how that's done. And then when Barbara and I went out to dinner, this is how fast she is with things. We had been talking about this and it's something she had already been thinking about, but she went in and not only if you click on these programs, can you see, you'll not be able to just see what the activity is. You'll get in a description of the activity. It'll show you the goals that would be aligned with this activity. It'll show you what languages this activity is available in. And that's another thing we'll talk about and I'll show you. It's amazing. It shows you what grades this activity is appropriate for. It shows you what subject areas. And then she went a next step and she aligned it to the Common Core standards. So you even have it tied back to a standard specifically to goals that you might even have from your IEPs or those expectations for your schools or your telepractice. So I think it's really great because you're getting a lot of good information about what specifically these apps are doing. Okay, so what we want to do is sign up and set up. And I thought this is the easiest way for us to kind of talk about what the app is just show you how easy it is to get logged in, create a user, and start therapy. So there's two different ways you can sign up. You can become an individual member, you can pay monthly, or you can pay one time yearly, or you can gain organizational membership. And I know we have a lot of things to cover during today's presentation, so I'm not sure how much we can cover about organizational membership, but it really is awesome. If you're an administrator or you work for a district that has a large number of SLPs, or you're part of a telehealth organization that has a large number of SLPs, this is a really cool tool. You know, brief description. It allows you to manage everybody's caseload. You have one administrator who can manage all the caseloads and reassign students to different therapists. And when they move up from 5th to 6th grade, you can switch them to the new therapist, and all of their data and all of the lessons and activities that they've done that have been recorded in the system travel with them like a digital file. And there's a lot more things that does as well. But the information that it provides to an administrator about the caseloads and about the student needs and about the numbers and being able to manage that is really is going to be an amazing change in the field, because I don't think we're doing that very effectively. And we have kids kind of falling through the cracks. So let's start our setup process. I'm going to click here, and we're going to get logged in. So let me make this larger. So here is the app right here. This is what you would see when you log into Speech and Language Academy. I'm going to go straight into the login because I already have one. So let's get started. This is your main page where you're going to see all of your information. When you put your caseload in here, it's going to keep track of the number of students you have. If you have active students, if you've dismissed students, it will show you inactive students. It'll show you boys versus girls. It'll show you grade level, how many students you have at each grade level. And it also, which I really love this, it kind of shows you your areas of need. So if somebody ever asked you, how many AAC kids do you have on your caseload? This would really give you an idea of how much of a percentage of your caseload has AAC goals, or how many of the students on your caseload have apraxia. And for me personally, I look at that and think, wow, I could really think about what trainings I would want to start seeking out based off of the dynamics and the population on my caseload. So here are some students. I'll be able to see all of my students on this list, and I'm going to go over here and I'm going to go onto the left side for my student roster. I'm currently viewing the students that I have logged in here, but now I'm going to go in here and I'm going to add a new student. In the student registration, you're going to put their first name, their last name, and last initial, what their areas of need are. So I'm going to put here apraxia. I'm going to click back down, auditory comprehension. Then I'm going to select their grade, 4th grade. If your organization has specific student IDs, you can attach these here as well. So I'll just put a student ID there. This is the unique information for that student. I'll put in a year of birth, 2012, and then a gender. I can also come over here. This is optional, but I really like that we can start tracking, especially for some of our more diverse populations, what is the dialect that they speak, what is the language that they speak, and then if they speak another language, so you can track that as part of your ESL population. When I put this basic information in, really quick and easy, I click create, and then I love this part. So we can create our own, these kids, like custom avatars. So I've actually liked doing this with the actual kid in the room because I think that's so great. They want to create their own avatar and figure out what they want to look like. So it's really a great get to know you activity, your first day back into speech, or if you're doing your telehealth session, you can have them start describing. So here's a girl, I'm going to put her in this. They can pick their clothes. They can pick their color hair. They can pick their color eyes. They can pick what kind of lips. I used the name Gianna, and that's my daughter. So I'll give an open mouth because she's always talking. And then you can change their skin color, give them glasses if they had glasses. They want glasses if they had freckles, whatever they felt like best kind of shows them and who they are. And then I just click here and I say create user. So then they have their own unique avatar that they created. And the next step to that is you can go in and you can add goals later if you just want to go directly in and start playing some games, or you can actually add goals. And there's multiple ways that you can go in and add these goals. So we talked a little bit. So let's say we were doing some Apraxia goals. Once I click on these, we'll produce targeted speech sounds in CVC words. I can click and drag them, or I can just put a plus. Either way, so you'll see here, I hit the plus button, or I can actually just drag it over there. This is my way of adding some goals in really quickly. Then I can go down and add some additional goals and see other areas that I might want to be working on for this specific student. So let's say I add in some pronoun goal, and it's that easy. So I really love that. If you are looking at goal banks, and I know we're always adding goal banks, you can also put in your own custom goals. So if you have goals, you can click and put in a goal specifically for something that they're working on, and you can type in the goal that you have, or you can copy and paste it from a digital file that you have of all of the goals that your students might have. So I'm just writing the child will improve language just real quick and save it. So now we're going to go through and we see our custom goals we were able to put in. Again, that flexibility, that customization ability is really amazing. And now I say, okay, good, I'm done here. And I've added in all my goals, and I'm going to continue. Now it's going to ask you to put your baseline of accuracy in for every goal, what your target accuracy is, and also the level of support. So I'm going to say visual support, same thing. I want to start with a 50% accuracy. I want to work towards 90% accuracy, and I want to go in and I'm going to provide a model for this one. And I'm going to go through and make a determination of all of the different criterion that I'm setting for my goals here. And once we have the goals set up, we can go in and save that. And so everything is here. And you can see now your student info is there. You can go and quickly click on their goals. You can edit that at any time. You can make them inactive. So let's say they master them, you can make that goal inactive. Or let's say it's something you've figured out you're not going to get to during the progress monitoring period, or maybe not during the year, you can make them inactive. You'll also be able to pull up progress reports from here. And you're also able to pull up all the notes that you've taken during a session from here as well. So you can keep notes in here on the students, on the sessions they're using. So really, for any of you who have used EMR programs and digital medical records, at the clinic we do that. These running digital records is so amazing. And when you're doing telehealth, it's really nice to be able to keep everything integrated in with the materials you're showing to the student, and then also the content that it's storing on here for you. Now, real quick over here, I have this Setup Home Access button. So what is Setup Home Access? Setup Home Access is digital speech homework. You're actually able to assign some of these activities directly for the kids to do outside of the therapy for carryover and generalization. So when you click on Set Up Home Access, this is what it shows you. You're going to see the child's name you're setting up home access for. You're going to put in the caregiver's first and last name. You're going to put in their email, confirm it, and that's going to send them a login email. They're going to be able to access it. You're going to be able to click a button and digitally assign work for your students outside of your therapy session, which I think is just amazing. And because this is a login tool, your students will be able to access it from any of the technology that they have at home. They don't have to have an iPad. They don't have to have a Chromebook. They could use it on their Android phone. There's lots of ways for them to get access to that. So this is how you basically get started. It's that easy. So just like quick, I want to go through because I feel like I've zipped through a couple of these things. So you can customize it. We went back to the good part where you can customize this app. Customize it. We can customize the users and create individual student avatars. We can identify the goals and be able to create those custom goals, and we can set up home access. That's amazing customization. But now we get to go play the games. And these games will work for individual students, and you can also set them up so that they will work for groups of students. So let's go in and play a game. So I'm going to pick Miss Gianna here, and we're going to get her started. And I'm going to show you guys adjective remix. Click on the activity and hit start. And I'm going to go in here and I'm going to play.
Who looks sad?
So I have that auditory prompt here. If I need it spoken again, I can go here.
Who looks sad?
Okay. And the students can select it. And again, thinking about that home access piece, if you're doing telepractice, right? There's been so many times where it's difficult. I've had difficult time sharing the screen sometimes where it's not acting correctly. But this is a really great way if you're sharing that home access, they'd be able to activate that screen as well. But again, clicking on here, it's keeping track of that data for you at the bottom. You get to control the pacing of this session.
Which one is sparkling?
Which one's sparkling? Here's our ring. This feature I'm a little obsessed with. So over here on the right, we have this little cog, and I'm going to click on it. And I can decide, again, remember I said about that customization, we want to be able to tweak things specifically for our kids. Maybe we don't want the text there at all. I love keeping text up there because I think it develops literacy skills and pre-literacy skills. Maybe I want it to, as soon as they make a selection, I just want it to go on to the next one automatically. I can select that. I can have the information presented randomly. I can even change the concepts that are being targeted. So I can go through and select, maybe I don't want all these concepts. Maybe I want to take some of these concepts out. So I don't have to have all of them there. Maybe we're just doing one area. And I can also pick a language. So this app is available to be used in with Spanish prompts, with Portuguese prompts, and with English prompts. So I'm going to switch us over to Spanish. And I'm going to get over here. Well, and so listen again.
¿Cuál es negro?
Good thing I know a little bit of Spanish. And I go on to the next one.
¿Cuál es grueso?
Oh, I don't know. I was still right. Hooray. Okay. So here's the really cool thing. Because I asked Barbara, I was like, okay, but why doesn't it just automatically, why can't I just pick the language at the beginning and then, you know, this is what happens. And she said, if you're working in a group, what can happen is maybe you have an ESL speaker in a group with somebody who's English speaking. So when I have those groups rotating back and forth with activities, not everybody is in Spanish. The student who needs the Spanish support gets Spanish selected. The student who doesn't need the Spanish support gets English selected.
Which one is curved?
So you're able
Which
to
one
even
is
alternate
nutritious?
between ESL students and English speaking students in the same session and have those supports and auditory supports in their native language, which I think is amazing. So I love the photographs. And just to make mention, and I'm going to tell you this about all of the things, I really like the idea that we have these activities, but I also like sometimes I bring in my own games and activities on top of that. So it doesn't mean that I'm still not doing a beanbag toss. It still doesn't mean that I'm not, they might answer a question and they're still, you know, doing a token. One of the features that she's adding in, oh, it's added in, yay, it's here. These are widgets. So on top of every one of the activities, you can pull up this widget. So let's say, for instance, not only were they working on a language concept, but they also have some fluency issues. What you're able to go in is you're actually able to use a Disfluency Counter, and you use the D and F keys on your keyboard to be able to go back and forth and put per syllable, right? How you're tracking their fluency while they're talking. So maybe you're having them describe the pictures after they're answering the question, and then you're tracking, let's hit start because it's timed, and you're tracking fluencies and disfluencies using your keyboard, keeping track of those syllables, listening to their responses, and figuring out how they're doing. You can save this data. So now on top of what you have fluency data built in. There's a stopwatch if you're doing a timed activity. There is also the dice up here. Let me try to get out of here. Oop. There's dice that you can use. So if you were doing like a board game on the side, you can always have them do dice. I love token games with dice. You have a stopwatch to be able to keep time in that. So those are some of the features that I think are really amazing. And then when you talk to Barbara and she tells you about the things that she's working on that she's adding, there's just more and more things that she's adding into the equation. So I know there's going to be more widgets to come, and I think they're going to be amazing and add an additional level of gameplay to the activities that are already here. So we can just go through, answer some of these questions. You're going to get some data. You can stop at any time, right? And it'll keep data for the activities that you've actually done. I'm going to make one wrong. And I'm going to do that one wrong. And
which one is yellow?
I like when we don't have that error sound. Sometimes when it's wrong, that can be really reinforcing for kids. So I prefer no error sound and then having that correct sound when they are making that correct selection.
Looks dirty.
And that's a dirty one. Okay. And when we're done with this activity, we can go back to our home page. We're going to see our students. We can take a look at our students. Go back and take a look at our student roster. And we can pull up Miss Gianna. And now we can look at her progress. And we're going to see that already we have some data for this activity in here for that with her accuracy. And if we go to additional details, it will show you, right, without you having to do this, maybe she's having really difficult time with time concepts, right? Like she's really good with appearance and with feelings, but touch and taste, that's where she was really struggling. So moving forward, I might eliminate all of the prompts that had to do with appearance and feelings because she's mastered those. And I can then refocus and target my intervention on the adjective category that is the one that she is struggling with. So I make my targeted therapy so much more effective when I'm able to make those changes. So it gives me the data, and then it'll give me data for different sessions that I might have done. I can also go back in and share this data. It's going to create a file for me. I'm going to pull that file up from the progress report that I just did. And I can copy and paste this. Oop, I just dragged it, but I can copy and paste this information into any of my IEP programs that I'm using, and quickly and easily, anybody is able to take a look at that. Okay. So you can put it into your reports that you're writing. You can add it into, you can add it back into any of the activities that you're doing. There's lots of amazing things that you can do specifically with that. Okay, let's go back in to, where is it? Here it is. Okay. So here we are here. Let's just scroll back because I know I'm zipping through. View, slideshow. I get so excited about this. I know we never have enough time to get everything done. So that's our adjectives remix. We took a look at that one. I'm going to show you the decoding room that is syllable blending, and it'll show you some syllable blending and sound blending activities. So let's go back into play games. And we're going to select Miss Gianna. And we're going to go into phonological awareness. And we're going to go into this decoding room. And again, really visually
We
appealing.
have brought the monster to life, but we're having trouble understanding him. Can you help us out? Listen to each syllable and select the picture that matches the word the monster is saying. If you need to listen to the syllables again, tap on the play button.
Pumpkin.
Alligator, yo-yo, pumpkin.
So here's what's great about this. Also imagine that this is one of those, did you need the instructions? Could you have given that description? Sure you could, but these are also there. So when you assign them for the digital homework, the kid can listen to the instructions at home, and anybody who's there to support them can also hear the instructions and understand those expectations. So this task is specifically syllable blending. Let's listen to Frank again.
Pumpkin.
Alligator,
I'm
yo-yo, pumpkin.
and I have those cues here, and it's correct.
Shampoo.
Bananas, lizard, shampoo.
Great.
Animals.
Animals,
Oop. And it got rid of the choices when they weren't correct. So I eventually get to that right choice to move on.
Yogurt.
Here we are.
Chipmunk.
shampoo.
Here's our chipmunk.
Sandwich. Toothbrush. Donut.
There we go.
Vegetable.
Ooh,
Bananas,
right?
donut, vegetable.
So I might do this. And then this is our sound blending.
Mice.
There we go.
Match. Mud.
Eat.
Feet.
Nope.
Move.
Oh, I think it's swim. So you get the picture. There's lots of these great syllable blending,
Blood.
sound blending
Snow.
activities,
Bone.
and lots of good auditory prompts along the way so that they're getting the information that they need. Now, I'm going to go back out here. I'm going to pick Gianna again. And one of the things that I, again, could go back and look at the data, and that's something that I want to emphasize because artificial intelligence is doing such an amazing job in analyzing data. I'm going to show you this articulation flashcard program. I use the iOS version of this for a really long time, the Smarty Ears app of it. Every time I walked in to do therapy with kids who had articulation goals, I use this app. Now, did they get bored with it? No, they never got bored. You want to know why? Because I did a million other activities on top of it. I didn't even let them touch my iPad. Never let them touch it. This was all they were doing was looking at it. I didn't have to take out cards and worry about where all my cards were and laminate my cards or have the kids rip the cards or have the cards thrown all over the place. I had my iPad. I was scrolling through all of the prompts, all the things I wanted them to say, and they were using that as the visual prompt. And I had the kids doing balloon games and beanbag toss and pop the pig and all of the other games that we know that we already have on our shelves that the kids love to play. But I love being able to keep the data here. So I'm going to pick a speech sound here. We'll do P. I'm going to select the number of syllables for the prompts that I'm going to be using. Let's take a look at this. I can decide, remember that customization piece. I can decide if I want to have them in all positions, in the initial position, in the medial position, or in the final position of words. I'm going to leave it at all positions. I also, Barbara had gotten a grant, and take a look at this amazing thing. If you have kids who might benefit from visual supports, we can then, she has videos of all of the sounds being used.
Help.
So again, that's carryover activity to home. If this is their homework, how great that's going to be, because even though you're not there, they do have a visual support there to be able to watch that sound being produced. It's almost like using the mirror technique because they'll be able to use that. The other thing that I love is you can go in and you can record them saying it. I loved getting recordings. I loved recording them at the beginning when we first started therapy so they could hear what they sounded like. And then I loved when we started making progress, we could go back to previous sessions and hear these recordings and show how much growth they had made in the sounds they were making. So I can record them saying, help. And they can play it back and hear their feedback. Help. I also love this. You can go in and you can record a video of them. Help. Help. Watch. And I can go back and I can play. Hello. Thanks, because I'm using too much technology at the same time.
I think it's because you're using the camera already for the Zoom.
Yes, I think so. But it will play back that video clip and you'll be able to see what their mouth is doing. They'll be able to see what their mouth is doing. And that's really wonderful because they're getting that kind of personal feedback to be able to start doing some self-monitoring. I always love that. We can also go through and have that auditory prompt spoken again.
Help.
We can have these presented at the word level. We can have them presented at the phrase level. We can have it presented at the sentence level. We can go in and present it at the sentence level and go back and use our widget for tracking fluency again, as I showed you before. So we have our widgets up here to track our fluency, and maybe we're using these sentences to track some fluency skills. I'm going to go back into the word level. I'm going to mark some accuracy for her. That was an approximation. That was an error. That was correct. That was an approximation. That was correct. That was an approximation. That was an error. Error. I'm going to go in and I'm going to take a quick note. And I'm just going to kind of, you can use that like SOAP note format, right? That I could use each session. She was attentive, produced, all requested vocal productions with moderate, my typing's off, moderate cues. So whatever it is that I wanted to document during that. And then I can click save for my notes, and it's going to save your notes in and tie them into this activity. And you have all your information. So I'm going to go back home with this, and I am going to log out to get back to my main screen. And then I'm going to go back into my student roster, and let's take a look at Gianna now. And look at all of this data, because the data is one of the things that is so important to me. And I know with our caseloads right now, it's so important that we streamline this process and have an easy way to get to this. But let's take a look at this progress report, and let's pull up this detailed articulation activity. Now, remember, I never let the kids touch my screen. I just did all of it as like the cue cards. And I am like one of those traveling therapists. I'll go to different daycares. I'll go to different schools. Like I'm always like roaming around like the roving speech therapist. And I loved being able to have access to all of this without having to carry a million things around with me, just a couple games. So if I go in and take a look at the details from this, take a look. I have exactly the words that they had an error. I can see exactly what was done. I can look at the date I practiced. I can look at the overall accuracy, but I can also go in and I can take a look at the word level. This is how many were approximations and the position. So maybe I'm going, hey, medial position with this sound, we're getting no accuracy whatsoever. We didn't do a ton of trials, but I'm just saying if you had a lot of data behind this, you'd say, oh, we have no accuracy for the medial position. So it looks like in the final position, they're starting to build some accuracy there. So we can focus on that. Maybe they're getting complete accuracy in the initial or final position, and you only need to work on, say, a medial position. It really then, when you go back in and you're targeting those sounds, you can be more specific and it will make those word selections for you. You don't have to scroll through your cards to figure out which ones were in the initial position, which ones were in the final position. So that's also going to be something that's really great. So tons of amazing things there. Let me go back in here. I'm gonna make sure I don't forget everything. There's so much stuff in here, and I promise you, for everything that I told you guys about today, we did not get to all of it. There really is such an amazing thing. So data. I am obsessed with artificial intelligence data for some things because it's separating things out. It's separating out concepts. It's informing you on specific assessments of areas like the position of the word or the category of the vocabulary that you're targeting. And it's going to give you that more specific data, and it's going to make you more aware of the progress that you're making in your therapy and the areas of weakness that the student continues to exhibit. So you as a therapist can then create more targeted intervention plans. And that means you're going to get your kids in and you're going to be able to get them out. I showed you the language options. It has multiple languages. I have never seen a program do this, what Barbara has created. It sorts activities by those languages, and then you can customize your sessions to be both English and non-English speaking. What do you need to be successful right now? You know, I ask my therapist this all the time. Guys, what do you need? What do you need from me? What can I do to make your job easier? Because our jobs are not getting easier. I think from an administrative level and a caseload level, and just so many things that are going on. And a lot of people, like my therapists, are like, I just need more, like, can I have some new materials this year? Can I have some more stuff to use in therapy sessions? And access to therapy materials is important, right? It's what keeps our sessions going and gives us access to new content. But our limited budgets right now means if you're selecting things, especially if you're purchasing them for yourself, or you've been given a $200 budget for the year, you really want to make sure you're getting the most bang for your buck. And, you know, this is a program that's giving you really a lot of robust content. I got it for all of my therapists for this year. I was so impressed. And I said, everybody's got to have it. And we've all got to be using this. And this is going to be an amazing way of being able to streamline that. And the resources and the technology, you know, to be successful, students are motivated by technology. Home access means it's really easy for that carryover. And then you don't have to wait in line at a copier machine anymore to make all those papers that never make their way back to your therapy room. This way you can log in and see whether or not they did those activities at home straight from your computer. And it also gives you tools to streamline your caseload. I know our caseloads are getting larger, and that's something that I think from an advocacy standpoint, we as a group of therapists need to address. But since we can't get to that conversation in this presentation, these large caseloads really mean that we have to be efficient, and we have to have an efficient means of targeting, treating, evaluating, and monitoring our large caseloads of students and being effective in our therapy. We want to be able to dismiss them. We want them to be able to achieve their goals. What does this look like from a student tracking timeline? You can use this program to start your therapy out, get baseline data for your students. You can use it to keep that quarterly progress that we need, both in plan of cares and in our IEPs. We can use them for reevaluation purposes and be able to isolate different scores from the progress monitoring tools built in to determine whether or not their skills continue to need work or they're ready to be dismissed from those goals. We can generate end of the year reports, present levels of performances, and add all that information in custom, right? In custom charts right directly into their IEP. And I think that level of data is stuff that parents, even our difficult parents, and I've worked in a lot of litigious districts before, the data supports the therapy and it supports the work that you're doing. And we need to provide good data in our meetings. And then really the goal is using a program that allows you to really specify and customize the content that you're presenting. It's not like, oh, I really like this program, but I've got to do the same 25 words every time I use it. And I only really think that 10 of those vocabulary words are important and you can't customize it. How effective is that tool going to be? This tool is so customizable, you can really target things very specifically based on the data that you're collecting. So you're going to have a higher number of practice items, opportunities for home carryover activities, and data-driven intervention. So we can get our clients dismissed in a timely fashion. And with large caseloads, that can be something really tricky to manage. The other thing I mentioned, it's a mobile app. So I know sometimes Smarty Ears apps were working on iPads, and now if you were an Android user, or if you just had your district doesn't provide you with any of that technology and you just have a Chromebook, this can run on anything, right? You log in on a web browser. So it's available. You can use it on your iPad. You can use it on your Android device. You can use it on your laptop. You can use it on your desktop computer. You can use it on the desktop and project it to the smart board, and you could do it as a classroom-based activity. So there's lots of amazing tools there. And that's my thank you. I know I said time always goes so fast. We never get to everything. So I want to know if you have questions, but then I'm going to pose a question to you real quick too. And then we're going to check the chat. And then Barbara's going to be working on figuring out who is going to win our prize for today. So my question to you is, what is the biggest challenge you have that this platform solves? So based on what you heard today and some of the things that you saw, what would be something that a challenge that you're currently having that this platform would solve for you? So throw an answer up in the chat. We're going to be taking a look at them. I'm going to escape out of here.
Jennifer, there was a couple questions related to middle school, if there was any middle school resource, and they wanted, and I think a couple other people wanted to know about actually running a group session.
Sure.
So what I'm going to do is I'm sharing my screen so that I can quickly show them while people are answering.
Perfect.
Your question, I can quickly show them what a group session looks like with a middle school activity that they wanted to see.
Great, thank you.
You guys can see my screen, right?
Yep.
Good. So I'm going to select here a couple students. So Dina and Jan. I'm going to hit start, and one of our most popular, and this is still one of Smarty's most popular apps, called Social Quest. And here, once I click, I select two of my students, and the goals are always individualized. So for example, here, it says select one or more locations for Dina to practice. So for example, for Dina, I'm going to do practice I love my questions in the bathroom. Then I'm going to close. Then I'm going to come to Jan, and I can say Jan is going to do expressive language, and we're going to do doctor types of questions.
When you get your teeth cleaned, the hygienist covers her mouth and nose and places a covering around your neck. Why does she do this?
So you can see that this is kind of designed, even the user interface is designed for your older student population. So Jan had expressive, while Dina had receptive.
Your brother comes out of the bathroom coughing.
So you see, as I'm alternating between the students.
The hygienist covers her mouth and nose and places a covering around your neck. Why does she do this?
As I alternated between the students, you could see that everything shifts. For some of the games in which you have different language options, this here is not available in a different language yet. But if it was, you could say Jan is going to hear her questions in expressive format. And as she's answering the questions, I'm giving her, if she got it, if we go to the next one.
The doctor said it's important to follow his directions exactly and keep medicine out of the reach of others. Predict what might happen if you don't.
So here you have predicting types of questions, and if she missed, and maybe we can say, okay, so that's a good answer. So what else do you think could happen? And maybe the second try, they give it an answer that it's a little more appropriate, and then maybe eventually they get it. Now, Dina is not at a level where she's producing and she would just work on receptive language.
Out of the bathroom,
and so she gets to select the correct answer. And it's typical, whenever they get it wrong, it disappears, we remove that answer.
I like to take showers, but I don't realize how long I've been in the shower. My parents went to lower the water bill and help conserve water for the planet. Here's a possible solution.
I can ask my mom and dad to get a bigger water heater. I can ask a parent or sibling to knock on the door when my time is up. I can set a timer.
So I hope that this, and there are other activities here for your older students, your how inferencing, learning about you. We have some things for higher level preposition in here too for older students. I hope I was able to answer the question of groups, how you manage the groups, and you can do groups of up to 4 students with the middle school content that we have. And I see people are typing in the chat. I'm going to stop my screen here and give it back to you.
Sure. Okay. So we have a couple of, it would help with planning, and especially if we flip quickly to remote learning for a short period of time, and also the homework. I agree. I think we never know if we're going to go back to doing telepractice for a week or two, like if we ever shut things down, or how that would work. I think that's amazing. Planning for mixed groups and being able to quickly access data for progress reports and present levels. Again, that's really important. And I think from an administrative standpoint, administrators are looking at very specific data, and they want more data, and that's taking away sometimes from the quality of our sessions when you're spending a lot of time on that. So I love that as an option, because this really does that. The data in a secure place, not the papers all over. I think back to like the beginning, I just had like folders of like hash marks, right? Of all of the data that I was keeping. It certainly wasn't as specific as that data, so as the data that this keeps. So that's why I'm always so obsessed. I was like, oh my God, can you imagine how amazing things would have been if I had this 20 years ago? Paperwork management, when you're in a therapy material rut, and I say this, I don't know that you'll ever get in a rut with this, because truly Barbara is always adding something to this. I think it'll be like a Christmas every week. Barbara's adding like these new surprises of stuff that she's doing. And helping with planning, and especially, okay. So, and then, can you add more than 4 for a group? Can you add, can students see notes you are adding? You can't add more than 4 to group at this time. I think it's just for 4 individuals at a time. And I know in some states it is 5 students per group, like legally mandated. Those are very difficult sessions to manage sometimes, but there are up to 5. I know in the state of New Jersey, it's like that. Can students see the notes you are adding? So anything that you're doing on the screen, and this is something I've always managed and that I've had to do differently, is once you click out of the note, it gets hidden again. So if I'm doing notes, it's once I've turned the computer around, typed in a note, and then put the screen back in place for the students in front of me. I don't typically write notes in anything that they can see. Sometimes I dismiss students, and then I write the notes at the end of the session once they're gone from the therapy room. Digital immediate homework that matches the therapy session. I love that too, where you're getting an exact representation of the stuff that they were doing in therapy. Imagine all these notes we've written in notebooks and communication logs back and forth to parents, because they don't really understand what's happening in the therapy room. And then we're able to send them these amazing games and activities. Yes, the ready to go activities are great. The data tracking for progress monitoring is great. Data, I mean, I tell you, I can't emphasize the data enough. Having everything in one place. I just have a horrible back. I'm just getting old. I really am. I'm so much older than I look, I promise you. Like sometimes people will be like, oh, you're not that old. I was like, I'm so old. And my back feels much older than I probably am. And just like being able to have the one thing with all of those materials and resources. A lot of my therapists travel from building to building, and for them, they don't want trunk loads of materials all the time that they're trucking with them everywhere they go. Saving and planning time, absolutely.
Guys, this was amazing, Jennifer. Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and expertise and love, excitement. I think I finally found somebody that is as excited as I am.
I think so. I said matching energy
about these things. All things to ultimately, we have this drive to make the tools that exist for us better, because I know things can continue to get better, and I'm so glad we connected. Thank you so much for doing this and for showcasing Speech Language Academy. I hope everybody here gained information and knowledge that you guys can just carry over tomorrow. Thanks, guys.